Okay, so I'm going to read the next chapter, chapter 21, Found. Winston found himself in another hallway with 2 rooms leading off from it. Once again, being led by either his memories or the strange winter magic that was tingling in the air, he wandered close towards the closet room. There was a sign on the door, tea break station. Yes, thought Winston, just as I thought. Then he shook his head. No, not thought, remembered. He entered the room, taking it all in. The gigantic, many-spouted teapots wrapped up in brightly coloured tea cosies, the walls with hundreds of mugs hanging from little hooks, the enormous biscuit tins sitting on the table. Winston clambered up onto it, and with a little bit of huffing and puffing, he managed to heave the lid off of it. He sniffed, and his nose and whiskers twitched with joy. This was exactly the smell he'd remembered. It was rich and spicy with a crisp little tingle of frost at the edge of it. Iced ginger. That's what it was, gingerbread, but made with iced ginger, which had grown outside in the snow. He saw the knobbly icy root in his mind's eye and remembered that it could only be grown at the North Pole. Winston's belly began to rumble. He realised he hadn't eaten for a very long time and he was famished. He didn't suppose the owner of the tin would mind if he had just a little nibble, so he reached in, snapped a little bit off the cookies and bit into it. It was whisker-wobblingly delicious. Was I born here, he wondered, in this kitchen? The biscuit smell was right, but what about the other clues? The flickering light, the rustling noise and the smell of peppermint. Winston looked around. No, this wasn't the right place. Then he sniffed again. He caught the faint smell of peppermint again, and then his ears swiveled this way and that. He'd heard something, a voice. Someone was humming. Someone was humming the tune he'd been following for all those days and all over those miles. Winston clambered down from the table, and as he was floating in a dream, he followed the music. He padded down the little hallway to the next door and finally said, the post room. With all the effort he could muster, Winston pushed at the heavy door and it opened just enough for him to squeeze inside. He gasped. He was exactly where he'd been visiting in his memories. This room was so familiar to him. The enormous old desk in front of a window through which he could see thick snowflakes falling silently in the moonlight. The piles of letters and envelopes, the endless scrolls of lists, all checked twice. The boxes full of paper teetering in great towers all around the place, and the large thick sacks lined up wherever there was space. Winston breathed in. Yes, he thought, everything fits. The dry papery smell had been from the books, but from letters and envelopes. Hundreds of them, no, thousands of them, arriving from all over the world to this tiny little room where they were read and enjoyed, their contents noted down. Then, when Christmas Eve approached, parcels were brought in by the sackful to be checked before being loaded onto a sleigh. And there, just visible from where he was standing on the floor, was the flickering light of a lantern, and a jar on the desk filled to bursting with striped peppermint candy canes for the letter reader to snack on while they studied each note carefully. Winston's feet started to lead him towards the desk, where carefully he started to clamber up the overstuffed drawers. His heart was drumming as the sound of the gentle humming grew louder in his ears. The surface of the desk was incredibly untidy. He picked his way around pencil shavings and piles of envelopes, almost tripping over a length of striped string, his eyes darting around for any sign of whoever was humming. Soon he came to a tall pile of papers, and behind them, just visible above the clutter, was a typewriter. Behind the machine he found a row of little mouse beds, each made from empty matchboxes or old tins of jelly beans or paper clips. They were all empty. Then he suddenly stopped. He'd been so busy looking and remembered that he hadn't realised the humming had stopped. All was silent. And then there was a voice. Winston? Winston spun round. In front of the window, their faces lit by the warm, cosy light of a candle, were 5 mice. 5 mice Winston found himself recognising. There was a series of names suddenly dancing on the top of his tongue. Wilfred and Walter and William and Winnabelle and Winalima, he whispered. They looked at each other. You're my brothers and sisters, aren't you? Said Winston. The other mice nodded. Their whiskers jangled with joy and their ears turned bright pink with delight. Winston stumbled backwards and suddenly everything became clear. I wonder what's going to happen next.